All right, we will call the Parks and Recreation Advisory Commission meeting to order for April 6th. First item is approval of the agenda. If you note that it is the amended, updated agenda. So I'll take we're good, motion to approve.
I motion to approve the agenda.
I can second that.
Motion by Paula, second by Paul. Any discussion?
Just a question,
Yep.
was there only 2 marketing proposals?
Correct.
Oh, okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Approval of the February 2nd, 2023 minutes. Motion to approve.
I motion to approve the minutes from February 22nd. Is that what the date was on that one?
Second, February 2nd.
22nd.
And I can second that.
All right, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. We have no one here for open forum, so we will move on to department reports. We're waiting for snow to melt. Since we haven't had a meeting here in 2 months, the rink did close the first week of February due to that warm weather we had. We never recovered from that. Rink got all the way down to concrete. So since then, we've been doing snow removal and odds and ends, and now we're really just trying to prep and be ready, have the equipment ready, have our supplies as ready as possible for spring, summer. Soccer is starting April 17th. It will be at the elementary school. Hopefully, May 6th we'll get out on our fields, but they're gonna do at least April at the elementary school, and give some more time for the snow to melt in the ground to get ready. We have 60 participants this spring,
Great. It's really
so
cool.
they are ready.
Are they separated out by age groups?
Yeah, so normally we would have both age groups at the same time, one in left field, one in right field. But we separated them into different times based on being inside the gym, so. Yeah, and then baseball, T-ball registration closes April 15th. And then May program or summer programs go out in May, so. Kind of finalizing the spring ones and getting the summer ones up and ready. For parks, cool stuff happening. We met our first deadline in getting all the trees down on the Gull Lake Trail. So they had to be down by March 31st, and as of 2 p.m. on March 31st, they were down. So
That was a very interesting process because I live right on there. Man, that machine just goes right along.
yeah, it was very interesting. I tried not to get in their way, but I wanted to see it.
There's people saying, "Oh my gosh, look at that tree massacre project," and I just. smile.
Yeah, it always looks intense before it's complete. So the trees are still just downed. We haven't cleared anything. But that was our first deadline, which we achieved. We'll be scheduling a pre-construction meeting here coming up in April. At that time, we should have a better timeline of the project. We do have a project website specific to the Gull Lake Trail and the roundabout, so people can always go to our website, click the links to go to either or both projects. And those timelines are kind of coming mid-April. At the end of March, I was able to get a grant submitted for $900,000 to LCCMR to hopefully to go towards the last section on 77. So that's about a half mile of trail. We'll hear back on that one in June.
So Amber, what is your plan now once you've submitted it? Because these are highly competitive grants, and I looked on the LCCMR website and there's massive amount of applications. So we have our local representative is on LCCMR, so he needs to be a champion because there's politics that go on there.
Yep.
They barter projects. And I know 3 members of the council personally from my professional background. So we need to reach out to these people before they review these applications. So that they, it's at the forefront of their mind.
Yes. I will say that we don't have a like laid out plan, but I do remember you saying, that
Yeah.
providing that suggestion and feedback is that's a critical part of the process as well. So took my first sigh of relief on hitting send. And now next step.
Are you asking for a plan B if that doesn't go through? Is that what you're
No,
asking?
The
Uh,
lobbying.
I'm suggesting we will now need to lobby for this proposal.
Gotcha.
Because they read all the proposals and there's a massive amount of proposals or different categories. And your proposal is going to get more attention if somebody has contacted them, they're aware of it. And then, of course, our local representative, Josh Heinzman, is on the council, so he should be promoting our proposal to his colleagues. Vote for mine and I'll vote for yours. That happens.
Yes, it's definitely on my radar as a,
Usually, I don't know, I didn't look at the schedule of when they're going to make recommendations on which. They won't have all those proposed, not everybody will get invited to a hearing. So whenever, like, maybe a few weeks before or whenever the council's gonna be reading the proposals or their deadline is coming up, then that would be the time to contact them.
sure. I will double check on that timeline. Yes, so the Gull Lake Trail is moving along. So I will keep you guys posted on that one. But if you hear of anything from anyone, you can also just refer them to those project websites or myself. Those websites will be updated, I believe, bi-weekly. So. For the Camp Lincoln Road parcels, I did submit, a data request to the National Heritage Information System and State Historic Preservation Office, to kind of go through some of the environmental, cultural, get started on some of those initial assessments. And so there's more notes within your packet on that, but just wanted to highlight that as well. Any questions for those things? All right. Moving on, there's new business here. So we were fortunate to have met Alyssa. Paula and I did interview her in February, which seems like a very long time ago.
And she was the one that was,
Yes, she did come to our February meeting. And so in your packet, you have her application as well as a recommendation to appoint her to the Parks Commission. So how it goes is we would make the recommendation tonight, that goes to City Council then in April, at which point the next meeting would be her first meeting. So if you guys have any questions for Paula or myself about the applicant.
I do have a question, Amber.
Mm.
So it said in our application, under potential complications, she had written on there that she has and I can't really read that. Is that she has a business that's focused on outdoor recreation? How would that be a potential problem?
It's more of like a marketing. So she works with outdoor schools and gear that they need. So it's a little more website marketing.
She doesn't see that as a potential problem, does she? Okay.
No.
I was very impressed with her. She had a lot of enthusiasm and she has outdoor recreation experience. And she has young children and she's very much interested in expanding programming for young people and more creative approaches, I think, than just the traditional sports. So I think she has a lot to bring to the table.
And she came here to meet us in February.
Yeah.
Which was nice to see her in person. No.
Like you said, it's been a while, so I
Yes.
don't remember exactly, but,
So if, like I said, both Paul and I think she'd probably be a really good fit, add some knowledge and, she's invested in the community. So if you guys would like to make a recommendation to appoint her, we can take a motion now and then that will go to city council in April.
I would make that recommendation to appoint Alyssa Marsh to the Park and Rec Commission.
I'll second that.
Okay, Paula motion, Sherry
She's
second.
Involved with, I mean, I didn't know this school existed, but something that's back behind the Pequot Elementary. It's an outdoor School,
Yeah, it's like
it's a preschool, I guess.
yeah, preschool. An outdoor based,
Environmental education.
yeah. We have a motion, a second, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. So in February, city council had a workshop. And I wanted to provide you with the information that they saw. Along with their feedback and kind of an update. So this is kind of building off of a little bit of where we were in January, February with the timelines and the projects. And so some of the projects are divided out into phases, like the Gull Lake Trail. Right now, we're Hazelwood and Lower Royal Lake Road. That's going to be phase 1. Anderson Brothers was awarded the bid. Trees were cut down. There's a project website and pretty soon we'll have the construction timeline. For Camp Lincoln, city council advised that we start on the archaeological environmental study. So that's where I went to those state resources to kind of work through those systems. The NHIS had an automated system, so I could type my information into the computer. That preliminary review indicated that there is one or more rare features that may be impacted by the proposal. So the review team is going to look at it. So now the people are going to look at it, not just the automated computer. And so this is looking at a lot of environmental things, endangered species, things like that. And so hopefully sometime here in April, I'll get that stuff back. I submitted it in early March, so it can take a little while. And that's one of the reasons why they wanted to get going on that. If you look at the phase 1, we're kind of just working through the road, parking lot and bathroom, hopefully to get all that completed, the engineering, the archaeological, if we need that, to the environmental studies, whatever we need for having that completed for next year.
So you have to get the okay that there are no archaeological problems or anything that.
If they-
Or you can go on to get the contract with the engineer. The engineer's got to go look at it first, though, right?
We kind of had going through the environmental cultural first to see if there's any major findings that would alter where engineering would happen. So we're kind of doing the preliminary assessment in that way to see if there's any major items to be aware of. And then we need to get through the engineering of it as well. So they're kind of a little back and forth potentially. But until we kind of get this information back, we're gonna try to hold off on engineering till we get at least a
Yes.
general answer,
Yeah.
but a year and a half is not that much time. With City Park, kind of the biggest thing we've been working through is creating, kind of the roadmap for funding. And so Jenny has been working with Brainerd Lakes Area Community Foundation to have that be the housing site for the donations. As well as kind of helping gather information for city council for a local option sales tax. So kind of trying to figure out some of those fundraising mechanisms. We've been working through some of that. City council also wanted staff to do some research on a marketing plan. So that's why you have some of that information in your packet as well. When we looked at this, knowing that this is could be a multi-year endeavor, we just honed in on the marketing for this year, with the option to grow, advance, change, modify, things like that. So really trying to get that fundraising roadmap set up, get that foundation built, and then we can start marketing for the different aspects of the park. Playground, pickleball, that's kind of listed as phase 2, and then the ring, swarming house and garages will be phase 3.
So question here, are we now talking about moving the pickleball courts to 2025?
It kind of, the likelihood of getting them built next year is slim.
I guess.
If we were to so in my mind, if we're fundraising this year, and we've had our eye on that DNR outdoor rec grant, if we applied for it next year, we'd have to still get through all the engineering of it. So it's potential, like they could crank it out, but it might be that it'd be the next year as well.
So, I mean, Mission Lake submitted it 1 year and they got everything together and it was granted and they built something. I mean, I have people asking me continuously, when are those pickleball courts going to be built? And it's like, first it was this year, then it was next year. Now I'm going to tell them 2025. I just feel very strongly that was the #1 priority on our survey that adults wanted. And we don't service adults very much in this community. And, our master plan says that 50% of the households in Nisswa have someone over the age of 65. And that's a demographic that's very involved in playing pickleball, along with families and stuff. So, and they're the ones that are going to have the money to donate to you. Younger families are not.
And it can go faster. It could go slower. It kind of depends on how quickly we can raise the funds and move through the engineering and then get the supplies. Sometimes there's supply chain issues. I'm not aware of anything in terms of pickleball that could be affected, but there's just a process to it. And hopefully we can get the word out there and we can have this funding, the community foundation in place to house the money. Because as a government, there's certain things that we can and cannot do when it comes to the fundraising. So I learned that we cannot put on a fundraising event. Like as the staff here, I cannot plan the event and host a fundraising event. So it's just unique rules that we're learning as we go.
So,
And trying to, so I don't disagree that it could maybe happen next year, but there's a lot of things that still need to be lined up.
I just feel very strongly, and you've heard me say this before, so this is nothing new, that if you want to build pickleball courts, then we need to separate it out from trying to put it into this big campaign. Because quite frankly, somebody isn't going to give you money now. I wouldn't give you money now for a project that is maybe going to happen in 2025. If you separated it out as a separate fundraising project, you could get the match money right away because people know exactly where their money is going.
Sure.
They are not going to be and even in a broader fundraising campaign, you're still going to need, if you really want to raise this money, you're going to need to have options. I'm gonna donate to pickleball, I'm gonna donate to the playground, or I'm gonna donate to the whole package.
Well, that was my question. So, the playground and the pickleball courts, you have them in the same category?
Mhm.
Is there a reason or a way that you can separate the two? They can still work with them side by side, you know, because they're in that general same space.
Right, they're in the same area of the park. They're in a similar price category to each other. But at the end of the day, we haven't done any engineering on anything. So we still have to get all of that stuff done, whether it's if the playground fundraise the fastest and the playground is ready to rock, we still have to do we still have to do the engineering and the plans. Playgrounds are a good 12 weeks out from order to install. And so like every project just needs a little bit of running room.
Well, we have plenty of pickleball projects around here, Cross Lake, Ironton, where we know the specs, we know their plans, we know how much it cost them. I don't see that the engineering would be very difficult for that.
No, it just takes time.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, what is the process with the engineer? Because I mean, the pickleball courts are just one piece to the larger holistic view of the park, and if we rush to get pickleball courts and that's not properly engineered with the idea of the whole playground, then we're gonna be taking steps backwards later on. But as far as getting a landscape architecture firm or an engineering firm, like what's the process with that as far as getting? Cause I'm assuming we're gonna get the whole park designed and then we can start fundraising for pieces. So that way we're looking at it from a whole park perspective.
Yeah, I think that definitely you have to consider the entire park and how the different elements play off of each other. So the next April 17th, the council is having a retreat, and this is the next time I'm presenting all of this information back with your feedback back to them. And so that meeting will be part of, these 23, 24, and parks we have and beyond, planning. And then how are we funding all of these things is another thing. Like, okay, we know we need to have engineering. We have to determine where those funds are coming from. And so yes, city council and myself, we need to lay out that plan. But I do think it's important to look at the entirety of the park, at least on some level, before we go updating anything, because they do play off of each other, and we got to make sure that we don't want to, redo something. But how that falls into city council's priorities is yet to be determined.
Well, I don't disagree with that, but you're also going to be much more successful at fundraising if you take them project by project instead of trying to lump it into one huge park improvement project.
Yeah, and that's good feedback, and maybe when we get to the marketing plans, if we can talk about that further, and maybe that's a directive we give whoever we go with. Because a lot of that marketing can be targeted to different groups of people. So yes, I will bring this feedback if you guys have any other thoughts on.
I still think the $750,000 here that was in the master plan for pickleball and the playground is an inflated estimate. I don't know about playground, how much the playground equipment. I guess it depends on, if we go with this really inclusive playground approach, which may entail special equipment.
Yeah, and if we want to make it more of a destination, or is it going to be, more similar to what we have now, but it also including inclusive,
Yeah.
Equipment. But in that $300,000 to $500,000 range for that playground wouldn't be surprising.
No, yeah, you can easily spend 300,000.
Yeah,
Easily.
especially with the with the surface material. I mean, you could spend 300 in just surfacing.
if we opt out of wood chips.
And I'm sure a lot of it's gonna depend on how much monies you get for each project as well.
Well, and
You can always add to projects as they go
right.
along.
And so for reference, when Cross Lake did theirs and Paula gathered this information, they said it was about 16 to 20,000 per court. In the master plan, they kind of lumped everything in, including like some of the engineering costs at about 50,000 a court. So that's probably on the high end. It's probably still closer to 20 to 30 per court. So it's likely that that's on the high end, but it still factors in some of the other costs that aren't like engineering. So I've left it at the high end and let's hope for lower.
So can we go back to the engineering contract? So right now, it's just at the beginning. You're still looking for an engineer? Is that correct?
We have, yeah,
statement?
we have done nothing, so we do have a city engineer with Seth. And I've recommended that every element of the park has its own specialty group of people. So like hockey specific, playground, you're gonna have to get with a playground company to help design the playground. So there's some engineering like moving earth and like where the water lines are and, sewer lines and things like that, electrical things.
Is
So
there,
some of that's engineering and then some of it's specific to industry.
is there a contractor, general contractor that can take a look at that thing as a whole? And you can start, so you can like look at it for a whole that can include the whole project? And then you could start like little projects at a time from that? You know what I mean? So you
Yeah.
can start with pickleball, or you can start with the playground, or you can start with certain things. Cause you're not saying the contractor is gonna have to look at the whole area and at one time. You have to wait before you start the project. I mean, you can take a piece of the project with that general contractor at one step at a time, correct? Am I making myself clear? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of different ways we can go about that. And at this point, we just haven't had those conversations with city council.
okay.
So like, we
Okay.
know that it's coming. And that I'm sure the engineers will have ideas and then we gotta get the, different people involved. Some of it's gonna need a landscape architecture, some or an architect. Do the architecture, some of it's gonna need that playground design specific, and so there's just multiple people on different projects and really trying to figure out how to
Bring it all together.
bring it all together, so that way it when they do get complete, it gels well.
I'm gonna lead in with what Paula was saying with the pickleball courts and the playground. And that seems to be the least inexpensive area to look at and the most of what people wanted, besides having that continuity,
Mhm.
of the parks and the signs and that kind of thing. But the pickleball court, I mean, that pickleball is really is just on fire right now.
Mhm.
People are just waiting for those pickleball courts to start. So I think you'll have, if the fund, when it comes to fundraising, I think that's gonna be, you'll get some monies from that.
If they think it's gonna be built fairly soon. What is the process for a sales tax, a local, what do you call it?
Local option sales tax.
Yeah.
I'm still learning more and more about this, but I think we need to,
I can. address
you want to? Okay.
Um, one of the options we're looking at is a half of 1%. Okay, so you got there's a steps you have to go through. First, is, yes, that's what we're gonna do. Two, you have to, put it to a vote for the residents.
Mhm.
And there, that's what the legislation.
Switch that, goes through legislation, then to the vote.
Up or down it. And then from there, if they up it, well, then it goes there.
So it's a sales tax on what?
The merchandise, is it for the?
Just merchandise?
Yeah, it's,
You're not, you wouldn't be taxing the services, retail, it's just retail, okay.
yeah, it's just retail. Yeah,
So yeah, that, I believe we have to submit like kind of an intent. Which would be this fall, and then the application is due the end of January. So that'd be January 2024. The next vote is November 2024. So that would kind of be the timeline on that.
The 2024 legislature would
Yep.
have to approve it.
Correct.
and a guesstimate, which is pretty good, would be like 400,000.
Annually.
And, you know, you put it in, we do it for parks. And then, once that's completed, it goes.
Sure. Yeah, sounds like a good potential.
Other thoughts, comments on kind of the information that I've given to council, their feedback on it, and what you'd like me to pass along to them? April 17th.
We just heard that.
I'm following you. All right, so that all leads into the marketing plan. So again, on City Park, along with creating that fundraising roadmap, council talked about outsourcing marketing for this project campaign. Jenny and I kind of just looked at it and as a way to grow and build from this season. So we asked them, I reached out to 5 different local companies. I got 2 proposals back. What I asked them is for an advertising period of May to September. And then doing some of the content creation. Geofence ad campaign, so that's kind of identifying the physical region and then what kind of demographics we're trying to target, and if you land in that, then you get our ads. That's how you see them. And so within that kind of targeted display tactics. And so we did get two plans back. One from KK Advertising and then one from Gull Lake Productions. So I will say that, like anything, this is pretty customizable, and we're trying to give them some criteria to go off of. But I learned a lot of lingo through the process.
So before we talk about those proposals, I just have some questions about this marketing plan, because this is all new news. I mean, I knew nothing about it until I read through your packet. So what is your purpose this year, May through September? And did you give them a specific purpose, and did you give them specific targeted demographics to reach?
So in my initial email to them, council didn't define any of that for us. So I kind of took my own liberties and decided, like, my first questions were, have you worked with governmental agencies? If they could provide some examples of what they've done. And then I gave them some ideas of what I'm looking at. So in total, we have, almost $10 million worth of stuff. We're looking at pickleball, we're looking at the playground, we're looking at hockey. And so some of those topics of what we're trying to fundraise for. But ultimately, I asked them for marketing, a fundraising campaign.
But what was the specific purpose for May through September? Was it just to create awareness? Was it you really thinking that this kind of marketing plan was going to raise money? I mean, you have to have a specific purpose for a specific campaign.
Yep, it was to solicit donations. And awareness.
But I don't think people are not gonna donate until they see a full scope of a fundraising plan. What are you raising money for? How much is it gonna cost? What's the timeline? We don't have that kind of fundraising plan in place yet. So basically, I personally think the only thing you could accomplish with this May through September is just creating some awareness of the need. But I definitely don't see this type of campaign creating many donations.
Okay. What, in terms of kind of some of what you just said, what are the things that we would want to direct to if we were to go with one of them and kind of something that they presented? Like I said, it's all customizable. What is it that our goal is? Like I said, I've been trying to learn some of the terminology and morph this as we go. Since council brought it up in February and they said, bring us some information.
Well, I don't think
So-
we're at a point where we know what we want to hire a marketing company to do. I mean, like you asked them to do geofencing ad campaign. Well, I know about geofencing. And that's not a tool to get people to donate money. It will create awareness, and quite frankly, personally, I think it's a very invasive technique because I don't want more ads on my phone. You know, it'll create awareness of whatever your purpose is, but you've got to have a defined purpose for this campaign. And if we're just saying, hey, we need money because we got all these, we got a new master plan and we got to raise money for it.
Will these marketing companies help us define those goals through their experience working with government agencies? I wonder.
I'm sure, yeah, it's like, obviously they have a lot more knowledge of their avenues that they can go down. And to Paula's point, like, I do think we need to be clear on what we're asking for. Like, are we looking for just pickleball? Are we looking for the whole thing? And so I think, yes, it can probably go back and forth a little bit. Like in my exchanges with both of these companies, I've learned a lot about what they can do, what might work. But yes, we have not clearly defined our goals of this. It's the first year hearing of it. I got direction to look up some stuff in February.
So what caused that direction to look into the marketing firm? How did that come up?
Part of the discussion through fundraising, just in general, the city's need to communicate with the community, knowing that this is a multi-year endeavor from fundraising through construction, and we're gonna potentially need to span that whole process in terms of awareness, knowledge, educating, fundraising, all the different things. And so for right now, we just kind of scaled the timeline back to this year to give them some parameters to work within.
Is it to create excitement about the project? You know, to get the word out kind of, you know, and for fundraising?
Yeah,
So then you have it from May, did you say till January or to?
in there it's September. One of them said that there's usually another push November, December at the end of the year. Is sometimes pretty beneficial, you know, that give to the max day is November. So it's not an uncommon thing to have, you know, donations November, December too.
Well, I think you just have to look back at the history of the Nisswa Lake Park and fundraising there. And look at the reality that the reason the park went forward so fast was because of Millie's donations. And then she made another donation, but they really struggled with raising money for the Nisswa Lake Park. And I'm raising these questions because it's money that the city may just be throwing away if you don't have a particular reason for doing this campaign and have an expectation of what your outcome is. And they can't create materials unless they know what they're targeting the materials to, what the purpose is. So that's just my thoughts on it. When it really comes down to raising money for these projects, if we have 50% of the people in Nisswa have households with over 65, they're gonna have to rely on traditional marketing, not just social marketing like this is, because they aren't necessarily tuned in to social marketing. And it's gonna take face-to-face and more personal types of contacts if you want to get significant donations. I'm not talking about the $25 here and the $50 there. If you want people to donate $100, $500, $1,000, it's gonna take effort and reaching people.
So if you were the one, what would you guys say to city council or the marketing campaign is the purpose? What is our purpose? How do you define that? What do you see our goal right now?
When I see all of this in this area, there's so many projects going on. And there's a lot of money needed that needs to be raised, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so that's, I think, personally, I think it's fundraising. I mean, you gotta raise the money.
But people don't donate money until they're aware of stuff. And so marketing doesn't just go from awareness to slapping a check on somebody's desk.
And it doesn't happen
And it won't
May.
happen with first impressions
Yeah.
either.
I mean, I do think awareness right now is maybe priority number one, just because we are early on in the process. Plus, we don't have a lot of the design or hard numbers to a lot of things right now. So it's hard to go from, yeah, like you said, go from where we are now to a check on the table, because there's a lot of things to fill in yet in between.
A marketing firm might come down, you might want to, after you try other things, or either push it back a little bit. I mean, once somebody stays, the community sees the projects are happening and it's really gonna happen, then, maybe consider the marketing after that. May is really early. That's just next month.
You probably wouldn't even have your Brainerd Community Foundation in place by then.
I'm not quite
That's not,
sure exactly where that is in the
so there isn't
process.
a vehicle to even donate to.
And I kind of put May because they need running room to create the content too. So we need to go through the steps of
Just think we're way too early in the process for a marketing plan.
what do you think would be a better timeline? If we have awareness and funding, what do you think the appropriate timeline then is?
About building anything until 2025. So. Probably next year, because you need to get your whole thing laid out, and we need to have better idea of what the costs for each thing are. What would they put on a website now about this? The master plan is about the only thing we have. So I don't even know what they would utilize, what they would put on a website or on a geofencing ad because we don't have enough specificity right now. For a good fundraising campaign, you have to have, why and what and the different pieces of it. And we're not really there yet.
Amber, do we have, in order to get this project engineered and or drawn, do we need to fundraise for those funds?
We have not identified where those funds are coming from yet.
Cause that might be our next fundraising step.
That's very important.
Cause that's gonna need to probably come next or soon. But if we have to fundraise for those designs, that might be our next step in the process to get that going. So yeah, I guess identifying, how to get in the design / engineering phase.
Cause once you have that, then you can see where the projects are coming in and you can tell people, okay, the pickleball courts are coming in, blah, 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 they're going over here. The park, the playground's going over here, and then people start to see it and get excited about it. But I think that's right. I think that's like the first thing that's gotta happen is we get that done first.
Any other thoughts you'd like me to communicate to city council? Or just in general, things that I could
Just
work
for the money
on and
spent,
communicating to,
spent, you know, I don't think that you would, for the money spent, you're like looking at $25,000 or something.
one of them, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, the one proposal, they had $19,000 for geofencing. And I've been involved in projects that used it and then discontinued using it because number one, the numbers were inaccurate. And number two, they didn't get any results from it because again, geofencing isn't a mechanism to drive people anywhere. It's just an awareness. Or if you have a special, discount on this or that might drive people. But in this instance, when you were trying to get them to, donate money, it's not gonna drive them to do that.
So in one of the plans, there's a lot more web-based geofencing, with some of the print materials. As a, kind of a TBD with the price tag. In the other one, they had a bunch of optional things listed, like yard signs, window clings, making a logo, flyers, banners. They said a digital tip jar. Are those things that you think at the right time, are those effective methods?
Not necessarily.
What about the Brainerd or the Nisswa Chamber? I mean, in partnership with the Nisswa Chamber, I mean, they do a lot of social media, don't they? I mean, kind of go in partnership with them somehow?
Yeah, but we still, either someone would still have to create the content.
We don't even have a name for the campaign.
Nope.
So they'd have to create a brand.
Mhm. Brand, logo, all of that kind of stuff.
Can I put an input in here real quick? For that retreat that's coming up in a week and a half for the council. I think the council just wants to see a checklist. So I think if your checklist is, we want engineering and design first, boom, boom. Look into fundraising and then marketing after that. The marketing thing came out because there's so many things going on with the city in the future, which we asked staff to look at. There was a realization that Nisswa doesn't have PR or marketing, so that was thrown out there. Amber's done it. She's researched this. That's great. If that has to be pushed off a year, that would be me as a council member. That would be fine because let's have our checklist. Where do we want to start? Engineering, design, fundraising, marketing, and go from there. And then, a part of that, do you want to have engineering, design, have like another open house as did with the master plan so people can see, and then that would be your first excitement.
Sure.
Okay, this is the engineering. These are the designs we're having. Public comes in again. This is our vision. This is what we'll be, and then go from there.
Signage would be good too.
And I think you have to decide for a fundraising campaign, are you fundraising for a particular grouping of projects? Or are you fundraising for the whole, shebang in our master plan? Because that's a 15-year plan. So it has to be more specific.
Some of that through the Brainerd Lakes, what it would be is, you have everything set up, pickleball courts, this is the price tag here, and then people can donate to the individual.
Well, that would be good.
That's how they do it. And then so as the money comes in, okay, so now we've raised enough money for A, and then A would get done. And that's I were to donate to the fund, it wouldn't just be everything I allocated to where I want to go. And as far as the maybe prematurely speaking, but, if Amber looks in and engineering's this, and these are the design costs, I'm sure the city, the council can find a way to come up with that. But that may not be, but I'm just saying, I would lobby for that.
Well, I'm sorry to raise the question, but just my thoughts on marketing, and I think we're premature with that.
I agree with.
And neither one of these, I mean, I didn't even understand the proposal from KK Advertising. It was very unclear about what they were gonna do. And like I said, Gull Lake Productions were gonna spend $19,000 on geofencing. If that's what you want to spend the bulk of your money on, I did like their idea of having a dedicated website. And blog where people could, keep informed about what's going on.
So can I try and sum up what I've heard? So this year, we're kind of looking at building awareness and trying to get through some of the engineering design stuff. That would be our recommendation, followed by the fundraising and marketing.
Absolutely.
I would say, yeah.
Okay.
I do like how you're looking at the big picture though, Amber. You know, I can see where you're going with that. You're seeing at the big picture, at the end and how to put everything together. We're kind of seeing things more linearly, and we've been gone for a month and you guys have been working on it for 2 months. Well, we've not seen any of this. So the marketing thing and looking at it in the whole as a big picture, I like that you're doing that. The smaller vision if we're reacting up like that, when we just been gone 2 months,
Mhm.
the community will certainly be looking at it like that too,
Sure.
so.
Well, and in thinking, we also have the Gully Trail coming in this year. We also need to do Camp Lincoln. So there's numerous things to keep people aware of that are happening within the community, not just this park either. So head on a swivel.
Which brings back to signage again, because that was another thing that the community really wanted to have signs and have that once the trails were connected, or even before the trails are connected. That gets people excited as well. When they can see the sign is coming, this is what's coming, this is what's gonna be here, and this is how we're gonna connect the trails. So that might be a consideration as well.
Yeah, I've had some money in the budget knowing that we're gonna need signage, some wayfinding signs, which is identified in
Yeah.
the master plan, that we're gonna need some of that stuff specific to the Gull Lake Trail once that comes in, to direct people through the public water access, Nisswa Lake Park, the tunnel, how to get to the DNR, back and forth, Paul Bunyan Trail, as well as just maps of where all Nisswa's parks are and a sign for City Park. So I've been putting some money away, but we do need to create that along with these plans too. Yes, visual representation goes a long way.
I'm not suggesting that, we have to, if you want to go ahead with this, but just to realize what our expectations of it are, what it's going to create, because you get people aware now, and then you have to start all over again come next year, especially with our seasonal residents.
Yeah. Spent the better part of March trying to define the scope of the project.
Mhm.
So I do appreciate the feedback and the insight. and I will bring that back to council. Any other thoughts on projects, marketing? They kind of mesh together. Any other general comments and discussion? Okay, next meeting is Thursday, May 4th. So we will,
What are we gonna do during the summertime? Got any thoughts on that? Are we gonna continue to meet monthly or?
and unless,
June and August or whatever?
I will, if we don't have things, I will try not to have meetings. But where we're at, if we're, where we're at on this stuff, if there's things that I can try and bring forward in May that we think would be a good things to work through, you know, continuing on the fundraising, project planning. I'll see if I can get some more engineering information to help us kind of align, and hopefully that gives me a good framework to move through and try to be very mindful of if there's not any pressing items to not have meetings, but see what we can get done in May.
From the council perspective, I just want to thank Ann for that marketing research.
Yeah.
That's a lot of work. We kind of threw it at you.
You did.
Well, and it's not that it's not gonna be useful in the future.
Yep, exactly. Time and a place. So. If there's no other discussion, motion to adjourn.
I motion to adjourn.